I want to tell you about a dog I know. Her name was Pearl, a special hound dog that I met one time. Now, this was back in the 1970s when I was fresh out of college, and I went to work for the Greenville News in Greenville, South Carolina. And I was covering the mountain towns up there, the little towns that are north of Greenville, Easley, Pickens, Liberty, Central, Pumpkin Town. And way up in the mountains, as you're going toward the Appalachia, well, there was at a crossroads there was a store called the Old Hester General Store, and the Old Hester Store had been there since 1894. William Hester opened it, and when I was there, his son Frank was running it. Now Frank always wore a white Stetson hat and a white apron. He was a tall fellow, and I heard tell that he had a dog that was really special. So I got my camera and I went up there to interview Frank and meet this dog named Pearl. Now I go in there and there's a bunch of fellows playing checkers and sitting around rocking chairs near the pot-bellied stove. And there's old Frank with his white apron and his white hat, and he's behind the counter, the meat counter. And I say, Frank, what's the story on Pearl? And Pearl was laying over there in the corner. She was a beautiful dog, had beautiful eyes, and she was white with black spots, black spot on her ear and a black spot around her eye. And she was snoozing over there. And Frank said, well, let me tell you about Pearl. When she came in here as a pup, she would trade corn husks for bologna, slices of bologna. And later on, somewhere along the way, she learned the value of money. And she started buying her own bologna. Now, you had to give her the money because she didn't have any money. But people would come in and they'd give her $1 and she'd come over and buy $1 worth of bologna. Now, Frank sold meat by the slice in this counter, and there was a glass front on it. You could see the meat down in there. And you could see this big old log of bologna. Now, so I don't know what's in bologna exactly. It's spelled bologna, but we call it bologna. And it's made of pork and beef and chicken parts and pressed together in some kind of sausage. Kind of like Pearl in a way, because Pearl was made of bits and pieces of other dogs. Anyway, Frank says, take out $1 and see what she does. So I got $1 out of my billfold and I held it out. And Pearl came over and she took it in her mouth and she went over to the meat counter and she put her paws up on the counter and she looked down at the meat. And Frank took his knife and he had the bologna there and he was going to take a little slice off the end of the bologna, just a little bit. And Pearl goes, hmm, hmm, hmm. And I said, Frank says, well, you want some more? Or you want that's not enough, is it? And he moved it back a little bit. He's going to cut another little slice. And Pearl says, mm, mm, mm. Then he goes back all the way and he cuts a nice chunk. And he gives it to Pearl, and Pearl eats it. And she goes back over in the corner and lays down. Frank says, I'll give you $1 back. I don't want Pearl to know it's charity, but she thinks she's really paying for it. But I'll give you $1 back because you're a local. So I give locals their money back. But if you're a traveling salesman or tourist, well, I might just keep that dollar, you know. If you're so inclined to give Pearl $1. I said, well, that's a great trick, Frank. Frank says, that's not a trick. That's not a trick. That dog knows the value of money, and it knows what money is. I mean, you know, it's got to be a dollar bill. You can't give her play money. You can't give her monopoly money. You can't give her a piece of paper. No, it has to be a real dollar. She knows that. So, Frank, what happens if I give her $2? She knows that, too. She wants more bologna. She'll whimper till I get her a $2 piece. Oh, Frank, that's amazing. What happens if I give her a 5 or a 10? You give her a 5 and a 10, buddy, and she'll run out the back door and hide it somewhere. I can't give you that back if that happens. You know, she's got a lot of money stashed back there, I think. So, oh, Frank, that's amazing. That's pretty good. And so I took a picture of Frank and Pearl and the bologna, and it ran in the Greenville News. And for a few weeks afterwards, people came from all around to see Pearl. Gave her more dollars than Frank could handle, and she ate a lot of bologna. Not long after that, I moved away, and Frank had a heart attack and died. And when he did, the store closed up. That store stayed vacant for 30 years. And it's still vacant today, but they're trying to restore it. It's on the register, National Register of Historic Places. Yeah, but they don't have a plaque up for Pearl, and I think they should. I think they should put up a plaque for Pearl. Pearl, the dog who knew the value of money but spent it anyway on baloney.